he loves to frame himself as being a centrist, and yet I've never heard him say one thing that was like generous to the left over the right. And also, I mean, anybody with eyes or ears can see how he treats the right wingers on these panels. Like he is just so closely and clearly aligned with them.
Yeah, I don't know how to call out. I don't know if there's like a formal name for it, but there's a thing that people will do where what they'll say is that like I criticize both sides, and it will be like strictly as a matter of fact it will be true, but the things that they'll criticize the right on, they'll say things like, well, maybe sometimes Trump is like a little bit too mean on Twitter, and then on the left they'll be like, they want to destroy America. They're all communists. They cause World War III everywhere. Nuclear, and it's like, okay, it's not even remotely close. And that's probably it's the most annoying like both sidesing of things that people do.
Also, that panel, like basically it was like 4-on-2 for the entire time there. And I don't know who Brianna Wu was. And I actually didn't know who Ben Ferguson was either, but
Mm-hmm.
my God, like he will talk until the sun goes down. I mean, I had to tell him at one point. I was like, dude, just like at any point stop talking so that somebody else can talk.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it almost seems like Pac-Man wasn't joking, where he was like, if you let me say this thing, I won't talk for the rest of the show. Pac-Man said like 5 sentences. Like after 30 minutes, he just like completely stopped talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, like of all the people, I'm just curious, maybe you can give me one, okay? Save me from this. Of all the people who said they were centrist or they were undecided or they didn't like both candidates or they just weren't sure, how many of these people publicly said, you know what, I'm going to vote for Kamala? Was there like a single all these libertarians, all these undecided people, all these like centrist show hosts, all of them were like, we have to support Trump. Every single one. Is there anybody that didn't?
Do you mean these people who like parade themselves around as like these centrists, like the Tim Pool, where
Yeah.
he
The
still
Tim
uses his
Pools, the Dave
branding?
Smiths, I think Dave Smith, I don't know if it was the first time he announced it, but he said with peers, he's like, yeah, when he was sitting next to me, he was like, yeah, and I've decided that's why I have to support Trump. That's why I'm going to support Trump. So like, yeah, literally nobody is surprised, dude. There's not a single unsurprised person listening to this. Like, what? Dave Smith is voting for Donald Trump? Like, no way. Like, yeah.
No, but it's actually it's how it's their branding is smart in the sense that Republicans love to feel like they got one, like they got somebody from the left, and so they just let them fail all the way up. I mean, Tim Pool does that with his branding. Candace Owens does that with her branding, where she loves to pretend that she's some reformed, enlightened former Democrat. But these people are just through and through Republicans, and in large part, they're far right Republicans. They're no different than the exact MAGA base that they align themselves with.
Yeah, they were leftist for like reasons that were not at all like center or core when it comes to like policy stuff. And it's funny too,
Yeah.
because you'll listen to these people like, I've always been a Democrat, like there were strong Democrats that I supported, like Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard. But I don't know if I could be with the party anymore. It's like, oh my God, like fuck you, dude. And then like again, like the Republicans will say, for anybody that doesn't support Trump, they're not even Republicans. They call them rhinos, right? Like if you were to go up to a Republican and be like, yeah, I'm like a pretty strong Republican. I support people like, like Liz Cheney and stuff. Like they'll look at you like, oh, you're not even a real Republican then, Yeah.
Right. And yet they still skate by on their longtime liberal bona fides, and yet they'll deny somebody who is like a Liz Cheney, like the daughter of the Republican vice president, who was so deep in the center of the Republican Party that like Dick Cheney, are you kidding me? He's like the quintessential Republican, but that doesn't count because, whatever.
And it's like these like late age millennial, early age Gen X types who will say things like, well, I voted for Obama. And it's like, bro, what, when you were 21 in college? Like, why the fuck do I care? Like, you get a lot of credit for that. Like, everybody voted for Obama. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do
So
you,
I don't know. I mean, what did you think about the rest of the? I missed your commentary on the earlier part of the debate, but curious to see what you thought about like. I think the disconnect was like, Piers and these Republicans. First of all, I mean, the only time I've literally ever spoken about trans issues was on Piers' show, and that's because they know that it's an issue that benefits them to talk about over and over and over again. But like, there is no Democratic circles that are talking about gender reassignment surgeries in prison, that are talking about, like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a super minor point. I don't know how much of you watch me talk about this, but like there are these like unified groups on the right and left, but the biggest difference is that the right is very supportive of the party and the candidate, and the left is not. So you end up you have this like weird media world where, let's say that Donald Trump runs over 3 school children. And now I'm on my podcast and I say, yeah, Donald Trump is horrible and evil. He ran over 3 school children. Well, what is Donald Trump going to do? He's not going on any left-leaning platforms, but he can run this entire media circuit on the right and the center, never get questioned about it, not critically. Right. And not only that, but he can generate new attacks against people on the left. And then what happens when you're on the left? Okay, well, when you're on the left, you got to look at your media platforms. Okay, well, you can't go to any far left platforms, okay? You know, if I'm Kamala Harris, I'm never going to, like, I don't even know if Jimmy Dore counts as far left. We're never going to Jimmy Dore, never going on Breaking Points. We're never going on Hassan Piker. We're never going to these places, okay? Because they hate us, okay? Then you look at the center left. Now you go to the center left, and it's the most like finger waving, like hand waving, like, don't you think you should work on your messaging more? Don't you think that we need to be better about that? Don't we need to be more responsible in our thing here? Like, don't we need to be more critical of ourselves? Like, don't we need to figure this shit out? And it's like, damn, where the fuck is this on the Republican side after 2020? Like, if you ask a Republican, like, what was the self-reflection that you did after 2020? They go, why the fuck did I self-reflect? The election was rigged. Donald Trump is running again. We're coming for you in 2024, and we're gonna win next time. It's like, okay.
Right. And the worst part about that is because they decided to bury their heads in the sand and pretend that an election that was stolen, pretend an election that was legitimate was stolen. Now they've actually been validated in that strategy. There's no reason for them to do any self-reflection because it actually worked out for them in the end. Like, now that Trump has won, they're never going to change. Mm-hmm. I mean, this election was important because it would have served as a proof point that just straight up lying to your audience might not pay dividends. But in fact, now there's no reason for them to operate within the confines of any reality other than what they just create for themselves, because look, like, now they're in full power, and they did it on the back of this 4-year disinformation campaign where they can just claim that Trump lost the election, even though now, I mean, the logic that I put forward during the debate was the logic that I still hold now, which is this idea that, like, okay, so when Democrats were out of government, we figured out a way to cheat, to rig the election, and then we don't have that ability now that we do control the government, and then B, we just decided not to deploy it this time?
Yeah, that was my, I've made this argument a few times that somehow when there's a Republican president, he loses control of all of his federal agencies. Because remember, all of the Twitter files when the FBI was telling Twitter not to do, not to host Republicans, and remember all the big lockdowns that were happening and the BLM riot, like everything, all this is happening under a Republican president, right? The FBI, Deep State, Antifa, January 6th, all of that. But then as soon as a Democrat is in office, well, holy fuck, what's the Deep State doing now? Convicting his son of crazy gun crimes and shit. What the fuck? Like, it's not even remote. And you've got like her report, and you've got Merrick Garland being like, we need a special counsel for these Biden documents. Biden got in more trouble for his documents than Donald Trump did for the obstruction for his documents in Mar-a-Lago. What the fuck? And these guys have the nerve to say, well, there needs to be accountability for the Biden crime family. Give me a break. Oh my God.
The interesting thing is, too, like, when a Republican gets in office, all the things that they would complain about when Democrats were in office, all of a sudden, like, they'll get all the praise for anything that's good. But if anything goes bad when a Republican is in office, then it's no longer the federal government's fault. Then it's the state where whatever incident happened, it's their fault. And if it's a red state, then it's the city's fault where those Democrats are located. So they can just go down the line until they find some Democratic contingent to be able to blame. But like on the right, it's not that case at all.
100%. And also, get ready to hear about all those things that didn't matter before. Things like, oh, GDP, that doesn't represent Americans. Oh, the stock market, well, not every American is. Get ready to hear all those same conservatives being like, oh, well, our GDP is at all-time highs. Oh, well, the stock market is actually growing more than it ever has been. All those things that didn't matter are going to become the most important figures. And remember when they're saying things like, well, prices aren't falling. Remember when you thought Republicans didn't understand what year-over-year inflation meant, and all of them are going to understand it magically. At the end of Trump's 4 years, when prices haven't gone down and they've even increased, all of them are going to become economic statisticians. Well, they'll be like, why would you expect a reduction in the cost of goods? Like, the CPI never actually reduces like that. Like, it's impossible to bring down unless you engage in deflationary spiral. Like, all of a sudden they'll know it all. Like, where the fuck was this 4 years ago?
Well, you've already seen that there are charts that chart out consumer sentiment, and already the Republicans, since the day Trump won, have like spiked in terms of how they view consumer sentiment now that Trump has won. So nothing has changed with the economy between today and 10 days ago or 20 days ago, but consumer sentiment among Republicans has spiked now because now that Trump's in office, all of a sudden they're warming up to the economy that he's about to inherit.
Well, remember before, was it a year ago that people were saying that the Biden crash of the economy that was going to destroy it, but then obviously the market
It was
rebounded.
it was like 24 hours long.
Yeah, and then when the market rebounded and went up, remember it was because what did Donald Trump say? The stock market recovered because they think that I'm going to win the next election.
Just in anticipation of his victory. Any day where he decided he had a good enough poll, then any increase in the stock market was completely his credited to him, and then any day where it went down was just Joe Biden, Kamala Harris's fault.
Yeah. I'm curious because you're more mainstream. You understand the environment more than I do. I think are these people all getting confirmed?
Well,
Is Tulsi Gabbard really going to be DNI? Is HHS really going to be RFK? Is this actually happening? Is Matt Gaetz really going to be the AG?
all I can say is I've never you won't lose money betting against Republicans being the most extreme groveling sycophants on earth. Like you will not lose money betting that they will just do like he says jump, they say how high. There may be a few of them. I don't know. I mean, like the only litmus test in the Republican Party is how much slavish devotion you can show to Trump. And so, are you going to have people out there who who vote for who vote to confirm a guy who was just investigated and for sex trafficking of a minor? Like probably a lot more than we think. I don't know. I mean, right now the margin's what, 3 votes? They can afford to lose 3 in the Senate, 53 to 47.
The problem is like one thing people don't understand about congressional politics is that like people will look at somebody and be like, oh, this guy says he won't do it, or this guy says he will do it. None of those statements, I don't think citizens understand. It doesn't matter what you say you'll vote against or vote for when it's not the deciding vote. Like the people that are whips, Pelosi, like people will have these conversations with their lawmakers all the time. People will get mad about like AOC voting against something. And it's like, bro, this passed the House so easily. Of course she should vote against it. It speaks well to her constituents. It speaks well to her values. We didn't need this vote here. That's good. And it gives you negotiating room in the future. But like, I don't care about some, Republicans saying, I'm not going to support this blah, if they have the votes to pass it, because it's meaningless at that point. And that's what I worry about, is that when push comes to shove and Trump, assuming he doesn't just recess appointment and then find some way to make that permanent or some shit, I don't even know. Assuming they do the votes that, yeah, you have a few virtue signaling Republicans, but for the most part, they all just go sailing through.
That's what's going to happen. What remains to be seen is whether there's enough of those Republicans who actually stand up with Tulsi. Like the main ones, I think. I mean, look, Pete Hegseth is the luckiest guy on earth right now because this whole like clown car that followed him makes him look like he's Winston Churchill trying to get a job in this cabinet. I mean, but Tulsi and Gaetz are legitimate concerns, and I don't know. I mean, like right now, based on some of the reporting you're going to hear, there's going to be people expressing concern. You'll have the Susan Collins of the world, but like remember, these are the same people that express concern about Kavanaugh, and like we're so easily duped or so willing to be duped when he said he respected precedent.
And my biggest
for him anyway.
Yeah, my biggest concern too is that like if you machine gun out like 15 or 20, or I don't know what is the total number of cabinet level or cabinet equivalent picks that the president has? You know the number is?
Maybe like 44. Does that sound right?
Oh, because it was 40 out of 44 Trump cabinet. But I wonder if that included multiple positions. Whatever. Regardless, if they end up machine gunning out like
there's 15. There's 15.
Okay, gotcha. If they end up machine gunning out like like 13 unhinged picks and like 2 reasonable ones, and then it comes back and they're like, well, we pumped the brakes on this, we got rid of like 3 or 4 of these that were over the line. It's like, okay, well, me, right? And that's going to be the talking point too. If 9 unhinged people get in, I don't want to have 4 years of debating people where I'm like, I can't believe that RFK, who's the head of the FDA or not the HHS, has like now basically in a roundabout way made it so that like you need a 20-year approval wait time on vaccines. And then somebody's like, wasn't it enough that they took out Tulsi Gabbard from you? Like, wasn't it enough that they blocked this one? And it's like, no, it wasn't enough. The other people are unhinged too.
So, and I don't know if this is absolutely like a strategy that I could see them using is like to throw somebody to the wolves because they're so extreme that you're like, okay, well, basically we'll shift the Overton window so much that if we'll throw a sacrificial lamb that is Matt Gaetz, and then everybody else by comparison looks relatively sane. But at the same time, I mean, Trump has control of the House and the Senate, and I don't think he's one to say like to strategize like that. I don't think he's one to say like, okay, we're going to throw Matt Gaetz out there and just try to get somebody more moderate. When has he shown us that he's willing to moderate on any position? I mean, like, let's not delude ourselves into thinking that RFK Jr., like an avowed anti-vaxxer, is not the most extreme pick that would ever have been chosen for any cabinet level position in the history of this country. And Tulsi Gabbard and Matt Gaetz, like every single person is a complete opponent of the very agency that they're seeking to lead. So I don't know that he's looking to throw out some sacrificial lamb. I really do think he's just going for as extreme as he possibly can get on all of these positions because, like, he views it as a mandate. He knows he has the most pliable, supplicant Republican Party that you could possibly ask for, and so why not? What do you have to lose?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. I don't have anything good.
I am seeing somebody in the chat was saying Rubio is a neocon though. And that is like the irony of this is that all these people spent so much time complaining about like these rhinos. And then there are a few of these people in the cabinet. Like what was the one guy who was like Dick Cheney's Homeland Security? Oh, Mike Walls, was it?
Maybe, yeah. The one thing I will say for people to be careful on that, though, if they're thinking that, oh, well, at least we'll have somebody good here for like Ukraine or whatever because of Rubio's past statements. Being a neocon at that time and supporting Ukraine didn't have a big political price tag. There weren't people at the time saying things like we're spending money on Ukraine instead of money at home. Now that that's a new talking point, I don't know if these people who were prior war hawks or prior, neocons, I don't know if they'll have the same position. They could completely 180 on all of that and go, well, I supported it back then, but insert all the Kremlin talking points about Ukrainians dying and, the money wasted in Ukraine could be spent in America. And then they're just like not in favor of that anymore.
By the way, we know that they're predisposed to do that because how many clips are there of Rubio? How many clips have you shown in your shows of Rubio saying something about Donald Trump in 2016 and like saying things like, I mean, the things he said were so pointed and so embarrassing for him now, where he complains about those who like sell every ounce of their dignity and integrity down the river in deference to Trump, and like now he's the guy's Secretary of State.
Yeah, look, Vance said that he was worried that he could be, maybe he's America's Hitler, right? And he's the vice president. Right. Look at the articles that people like Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro wrote in 2016 about how they would never vote for Donald Trump because of his moral character or lack thereof. I mean, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So I don't know. I mean, like, if his position is that he wants to be like a pro Putin, basically an asset of the Kremlin, then like I wouldn't put it past Marco Rubio to shed his neocon bona fides and just become some complete, Tulsi Gabbard-esque talking head for the, for Russia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this doesn't even touch the Elon Musk insanity and everything related to that. So. Yeah. I got a dinner that I'm probably gonna be late for now. So any final thoughts or parting words or anything? Or
That's it. Catch you for the next one.
All right. Thanks for having on. Good luck.
See you later. Bye. See ya.
I appreciate that, Destiny.
All right. Bye.
Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.